The time is 5:31 p.m. I'd like to be mindful of everyone's time and call our work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels? Ms. Davis?
Present.
Ms. Green?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Rawls?
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present. Thank you. We have a fairly short agenda, I think. We'll see. This evening we'll begin with committee business from the Administration Committee. We have 2 resolutions for discussion, Resolution 64 of 2024 and Resolution 65 of 2024. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read Resolution 64 of 2024 into the record?
Resolution 64, 2024, a resolution of the City of Harrisburg to authorize the filing of a statement of revival of the Cumberland Dolphin Harrisburg Transit Authority, also known as Capital Area Transit Authority, pursuant to the Municipalities Authorities Act to extend its term of existence for a period not to exceed 50 years.
Thank you. We are joined virtually by Mr. Richard Farr.
There we go. If I can get myself off mute, there we go. Hey, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to this evening's meeting and to talk briefly about Resolution 64. We, as you know, recently created the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority, and honestly, in the excitement of all that, we happened to lose track of the fact that the Capital Area Transit's charter was going to expire, and that's what's happened. And so we do need to renew this because the Capital Area Transit Authority needs to continue to exist because it employs all of the employees. And so we did try to take action to renew it, but the Secretary of State pushed back and requested that it is the resolution for which we provided to you here. The term is escaping me. It's the renewal of and not the extension of. And so we had to redo the resolution and re-present it. So that's what we're asking the council to take action on.
Thank you very much. I believe you were deemed to file a statement of revival.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Excuse me. And that was of the Cumberland Dolphin Harrisburg Authority, Transit Authority, also known as the Capital Area Transit Authority, as you mentioned.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, it seems pretty straightforward. Thank you for joining us. I don't have any questions. I will open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions for you. I will begin with Councilwoman Davis. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. No, it seems straightforward to me as well. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. I don't have any questions for you all tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Good evening. Thank you for joining us, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us virtually. And no, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, any questions?
No, thank you. I have no questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I move to add Resolution 64 of 2024 to our next legislative session agenda for a formal vote. Next, we have Resolution 65 of 2024. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 65, 2024, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a multi-year agreement with Hera Property Registry, LLC, to register foreclosed properties within the city.
Thank you. We are joined by Mr. C.J. Johnson on behalf of Hera. Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Fine, thank you. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and providing a brief overview of Resolution 65 of 2024, please.
Sure.
My name is CJ Johnson. I'm the CEO of Hera Property Registry. I was the former general counsel of ProChamps. That was a contractor you guys used previously for your foreclosure and vacant property registry. I started the company a couple years ago to hopefully do a better job and incorporate more foreclosure data for cities so we could make or give the data to cities to make better decisions related to affordable housing problems and other issues that are common amongst the cities that we work with. We're currently in 185 cities nationwide, and we're working to grow. We purchased all of the data out of the bankruptcy of ProChamps, so we have all the previous history of all the Harrisburg data that was being registered and all the foreclosure data that was available in that system through the years that Harrisburg was working with ProChamps. And this resolution would allow our company to continue that work and continue working with the banking partners that we have to make sure that not only are the properties registered according to your ordinance, but they're maintained according to the ordinance as well. And we've built those relationships over the years, and we make sure that they're following your ordinance, and we're notifying them within the time constraints of your ordinance requirements. And we give all of the City of Harrisburg staff the ability to log in and view that information and do what you guys deem necessary to ensure that all properties are compliant within the foreclosure and vacant property ordinance.
Thank you. I just have one question. I like to review the terms. So I note here that this is an initial agreement that will run for 2 years. Then after the initial 2-year period, the agreement would automatically renew for a further term of 1 year with the consent of both parties.
Correct.
Okay. I will open the floor now to my colleagues who may have some additional questions. I'll begin with our Building and Housing Committee Chair, Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, President Bowers, and good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I was looking at the scope of work, the pricing schedule, and the additional fees. And the question I have is, will there be a back-end cost? I noticed it says services are provided at no upfront cost to the community, but are there any back-end costs that you perceive or foresee?
No, we don't charge any back-end costs. The fee that is in the contract is the only fee that we charge. And what we do is if we don't collect a registration, we don't get paid.
Okay, and then in terms of the titles, typically a bank would hold on to a title if a property forecloses. And I read somewhere in your literature that you would take title. Can you explain or give me a little bit more insight what that language means?
We don't take title to any properties. We're simply providing the data, and that's it. So when the bank takes title, we're tracking that. So we'll track it from the date that the list pendants is filed at the very beginning of the foreclosure action, all the way to when it's sold to a new resident and taxpayer. And then we end the obligation by the bank at that point, but we do not take any title to any properties.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering those questions. No more questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. I don't have many questions. I guess just for the public's edification, it says that you would retain $125 of each registration fee and 33% of any late fees, and then any balance will be remitted to the City of Harrisburg. So essentially, you guys do the work, and we get a portion of what you collect.
Correct. Yeah, we would get a portion of the total fee, and if there's any late fees that accrue according to your ordinance, that takes our staff a little additional time to make sure that we track down those parties and ensure compliance and registration, and that would be the late fee that would be included in there. And then once we collect the fee, we remit the balance monthly back to the city of Harrisburg with a spreadsheet of everything that's been collected, and that can be reviewed at any time during the month with any logins. That's all transparent within our system.
Madam Chair, just that's an error on our part. This was the version we met with their representatives and the mayor, and the fee was going to stay basically half of what the fee is. So we get half and they get half. So I think the fee is $200 for every 6 months. So the 125 was supposed to be a correction that we're making, and it just got through this version because it was the version on the system,
Okay, all right.
which was the exact same
That's
arrangement.
correct. We don't take any more than 50% of the fee if it's less than $200 or $200 or less.
Thank you, that's good to know. And then as far as the data, you said that it will be available to city staff because you guys are pretty transparent. How would it be made available? I know with the previous vendor, they said it was available, but it seemed like every time someone tried to access it, it just wasn't easily or readily available. So how will you guys make that available?
So on the front end, what we do is we get every name of every staff member that needs access, and we set up all the logins. And so there's no issue in the future of not being able to log in. On the very front, before we even load all the new data in, you'll be able to see all the historical information, and you'll be able to take a look at anything coming in, any registrations coming in throughout the month through your logins.
All right, thank you very much. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and good evening, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for joining us today. I was very interested in hearing what you had to say about the this registry. It's been something I've been looking at because we do have a lot of abandoned buildings per se, or vacant ones. And the thing that I've noticed the most is sometimes residents don't know what's happening with them. So I know in Baltimore, they were using QR codes to be able to scan it. Residents were, especially, to see what's happening with the vacant lot or abandoned building. And I was wondering, is that something you would be able to help the city do with the registry that you compile?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that we can consider doing. I mean, we're always innovating things for our clients, and if it's a QR code that you guys would like to use for the public, we can take that into consideration and put that on our list of expedited items for our development team to put in there. So that way, if we get an issue and you guys want to put those on buildings, we can absolutely do that. It's not that difficult for us to do.
Does that come with an extra cost? Is it part of what you're providing?
No extra cost.
So, Councilwoman Rawls, our ordinance at this stage only provides for the foreclosure registry. Some municipalities have both. We do not have both in here. That's something that's been discussed as coming. We instead deal with vacant lots through the sanitation department and their recording of those, and they share those with other departments, including Treasury. But we don't have an ordinance for a vacant registry, although that's something that could be considered.
Happen.
Yes.
And it could happen with the registry that
It
Mr.
could
Johnson
be
would compile?
right. There's
Right.
two different things.
Okay.
So basically, there's for their work, it's recorded in a courthouse somewhere that it's in foreclosure. Whereas vacant, sometimes you just can't even find
Okay.
the owner, who it is, and where they are, and why it's vacant.
That is a product we provide for other clients of ours. It just depends on your ordinance and whether you pass an ordinance that has that requirement. So,
Right.
As the policymakers, you guys decide that that's something that you would want to include, and that is a product that we do offer. If that is the policy decision of the council.
Right, thank you. I think that the thing is that I've noticed is because we don't have, I don't want to say out of date, but possibly out of date registry, we had pro champs who weren't doing as much as they needed to. That's why I wanted to ask you that question to see how we do change the ordinance or mend it so that it's better. But first, we need a good registry. So that's what my question was moving towards. But thank you both, Neil and Mr. Johnson, for that. It allows me to know that if we do approve what you would like to do, it is helpful in moving forward for our city. So thank you.
Absolutely.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us. Is it Rich or Clifford? CJ.
CJ. Yes, sir.
I've had a chance to speak to other reps from the organization, and I think it's a benefit. Would you be able to speak on how it differs from the current service?
I think my understanding is that the current service, they're out of business. They're not doing a whole lot. They, but the difference between what we are doing now and what they were doing, I think, which it is an important distinction. Yeah, and it was brought up briefly, before in the meeting, but our customer service is our forefront of how we interact with our customers and how we interact with our clients. We have a positive relationship with the banks. We have a very positive relationship with our clients. We're constantly reaching out, asking for feedback, making sure it's exactly how they want it. And we're working to make sure that your registries are including the best, most up-to-date information. And we're using our AI and machine learning engines to ensure that the data is correct. And I think that's a big distinction. We don't have a team of 50 people in a different country that are looking through data and making human errors. We are doing this through AI and machine learning, which our error rate is 0.001%. So that's a big distinction. We make sure that we're constantly asking our clients what they need and how we can help them understand the needs for affordable housing. I understand you guys use a lot of the American Rescue Plan funds for affordable housing and other initiatives. So we're cognizant of those issues that our cities are dealing with, and we're trying to make sure that our registry data is the best data that is being used for the city staff, so when they're looking at how to use funds that are being brought in by federal grants or state grants, they can best use that information to make good decisions for the city.
Thank you for that answer. That was more geared towards like the execution and energy of the firm. I meant more as far as like the numbers or financial, if you're at liberty to speak to that.
Sure. Looking back, every year is different depending on how many foreclosures are filed. I know ProChamps previously, who you were working with, they were at a 60 to 70% compliance rate, and we're at a 95% compliance rate. And that really depends on, and the reason why we can't collect them all is you get firms that declare bankruptcy, right, which you can't go and collect funds from them, or you wait in a line and you typically don't get anything from them. Or there's just firms that just don't exist anymore, or they transfer and it's impossible to track them down. So there's very few of those, but we've built a very strong relationship with the banking entities that pay a majority of these fees. So we can make sure that they're paid on time and that they comply with your ordinance and they know what those ordinance requirements are, which is why we have such a high compliance rate. And also we work very strongly with legal departments to provide them the packet. So if they do want to take properties to code enforcement hearings, they have everything they need to have a successful hearing. As a lawyer myself, I've done 30,000 plus code enforcement hearings related to these specific foreclosure hearings and foreclosure registry properties. So I know exactly what's needed to pass legal muster to make sure that these banks are held accountable. But typically, since we've done that, we've got our compliance rates up to about 90-95%, which is the main difference.
And that speaks volumes, about a 30 to 35% efficacy rate higher than who we're using currently. That speaks volumes. But that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. No further questions, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, any questions?
Yes, Madam President. How you doing, sir?
Great. How are you?
Good, good. Simple question. Once these properties are registered, can you explain, just for public purposes, how the maintenance, what does that look like? The grass cutting, because I know I had a business that, and I want to know if these services, is this because you're dealing with banks as well? Mm-hmm. I had a business through Safeguard, right? And what I did was property preservation. So I would go and do turnkey, trash out the property if there was grass cuts or snow removal, things of that. Can you explain how these services will be provided to the community? Because that seems to be one of the biggest issues here in the city with some of these properties sitting the way that they are and the grass and things are not being maintained. So can you give us a little explanation on that?
Sure. And then it sounds like you really have a good understanding of how it's supposed to work. Working with Safeguard. Safeguard is one of the top property preservation companies that is registered in our system, and they register a lot of properties through our system. And what we do is we ensure that the local contacts that they contact out and they contract out for these servicers are included within the contact information that we collect. And we make sure that they're aware of the local requirements. So on every registration that we send out by notice, and when they're coming in to register, we ensure that the ordinance requirements related to maintenance is clearly spelled out in plain English. Not so we break down the ordinance requirements for them, and we put it in a plain English format. So we let them know in multiple ways what they have to do to maintain the properties and what the requirements are for the contacts that they hire, as far as local contacts and local companies, similar to what you spoke about, need to do to make sure that the grass is cut, snow is removed, and any other code issue related to not only the code that's in Harrisburg, but related to this particular ordinance. So that also speaks to the previous question that we had, of the difference that we have is we're clearly spelling out those requirements to the parties, not just the banks, because the banks, there's multiple layers of who is in charge of doing the work for this, but we get it down to the local level. So we know exactly who is responsible, and we get their information. So if there is an issue and it doesn't get done, your code officers can call the phone number for the 24-hour local contact and say, "Hey, look, we need the grass cut, we need the pool covered, we need the windows boarded up, and here's your timeline, and here's what we need to do." So we have all of that spelled out very clearly within our system.
That's good, because that's what I was really wanted to get out there, because some of the times, in our city, people think that codes, you will be working closely with codes, correct?
We do, and more importantly, what we really love to implement, and we're doing this very soon, is allowing the code officers to put in their violations into our system, and it sends automatic emails to those contacts. And it's not, even if they haven't registered, we know the local contacts because we know the universe of the people that they work with. So we keep that database comprised of that information, but we allow your team to make sure that they're putting that information in there. So eventually, if they're just not responding, you have a itemized database of something to take to a code enforcement hearing for proof and evidence. So there's no real argument against not doing it.
Right. So it pretty much works as if codes, because again, a lot of the people here think that at times that things aren't happening the way that they would like them, and there are limitations with codes. If you file it, if they cite a property or a parcel, it goes on to the district justice level. It's no longer any enforcement there. So I see that was one of my next questions with the non-compliance. You just keeping a database of the non-compliance so it could be added to when codes goes to court or whatnot, to have that information readily available.
Every item is kept within each property's ID. So if there's an issue with a particular property and it's added to that property ID, and you click on that property, everything is itemized there, and you can download it and you can send it to you, and you guys can take that with the evidence however you need it to.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, did you have any questions?
Yes, and I apologize. You may have answered some of these. I showed up a little bit late. So just a reminder, what's the split between what Hera gets and what the city gets?
We get 50-50 split on the fee.
What's the fee right now? Is it 200 still?
200 per 6 months. The ordinance hasn't changed. It's the same ordinance.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. And can someone go over review the history again? When did the last company kind of stop functioning?
I don't have that committed to memory. We got notice and put in our notice to cancel the contract. They were in the equivalent of a bankruptcy in a Florida legal system. We weren't going to pay anyone to go down to Florida because we didn't see any money left to go get. We have
It was
been,
June 2023.
right, when it finalized. So,
Correct.
And then in the meantime, what have we been doing?
we actually evaluated this in a lot of detail about whether this was something that could be brought in-house, whether there were other options out there. Ultimately, the conclusion was that was not going to be effective to have it in-house. And then it just became a recognition that we're leaving money on the table right now. Under the ordinance, there's people that do pay directly to Treasury, but very few. And there is no registry for them to look at. So the registries just went stagnant when these guys went into their proceedings down in Florida. The analysis was that we needed to bring a company back in, and Hera was doing this. So.
Okay, and regarding Hera, I think you probably answered this, but how long have you guys been in business?
We started the company May of 2023, and since then we've 185 municipal clients since then.
Okay, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other additional questions?
Yes, President Bowers, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Johnson. Just one more question. Are there any properties currently, well, you may not know this right now, but are there any properties in general that you may not be able to register and monitor? Perhaps properties that are attached to a trust?
No, it really depends on your ordinance. So we have our data analysts go through the ordinance. We have an ordinance maintenance tool. What we'll do is we'll put all your business rules in, and we'll make sure that any data that comes in complies with those strict requirements of the ordinance. And if there's something that, for instance, it's a trust or something that's a little bit difficult to find, it'll kick it back to our research team, and they'll go through and find the party, the responsible party, email, phone number, the actual human, and not the entity, so we can find somebody to talk to on how to deal with these properties.
The reason why I asked this question is because we have quite a few properties in the city of Harrisburg that have just been sitting for years and years and years and years, and they're overgrown, they haven't been touched. So how long do you think, once your contract is enforced here with the city, do you think that you would be able to go through the entire city to address all these different properties?
So most of those properties are not going to be captured in this ordinance. Those are vacant properties. What's captured is those that have a formal foreclosure proceeding
Okay.
filed in a courthouse.
Okay.
So those cases have a lifespan, right? They were longer after the 2008 collapse, but they have a lifespan where you're only going to be in foreclosure for so long until the property is sold. That is the current version of the ordinance. As I think Ms. Rawls was asking, we could update the ordinance and add conditions to add a vacant property ordinance, but they are different things. So,
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Sure, and if you do have a list of properties that you'd like us to take a look at, I mean, that's our data team looks at that, and because if you're a client, we have no problem trying to help code to locate some of the parties, so your officers can reach out to them. That's not something that's uncommon that we do.
I appreciate that. I do have a list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that in the agreement on page 2, subsection C, it mentions the fee. So for those that asked about the 50% or 50-50 split, it's noted there. I think the pricing schedule that Vice President Green mentioned was a separate document that was previously provided by Hera. So I just wanted to note that that is noted in the agreement in Exhibit A. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments related to Resolution 65 of 2024, I move to add it to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. So this concludes the work of the Administration Committee. Next, we will hear from the Public Safety Committee. I will defer to our Public Safety Committee Chair, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, President Bowers. See Deputy Chief Young and Mr. Angelo Craig. Step to the floor. State your name, title. And Mr. Trudell, can you please read Resolution 63, 2024 into the record?
Resolution 63, 2024, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with the Research Foundation of the City University of New York on behalf of the National Network for Safe Communities at John Jay College to provide consulting and training services to support the Group Violence Intervention Program.
Thank you. All right, Deputy Chief Young, just quick overview. Can you give us a little quick overview of what this resolution is?
Certainly. Good evening. I'm Deputy Chief Young. So the resolution, basically, what we're doing is we're seeking consulting and training services to aid the work to reduce violence in the city.
Can you pull your mic a little closer? Yes, so I can hear you.
Down here, I'm trying to speak in this. That and acronyms, sorry.
Right.
We would like to contract with NNSC or the National Network for Safe Communities for assistance in the continued implementation of a comprehensive group violence intervention strategy. NNSC is a pioneer in group intervention and the only organization that contracts with municipalities to ensure successful implementation of the group violence intervention. This is a 2-year contract for $165,000 for consulting and training services, which is funded through this will be through PCCD or the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. The scope of the services for this contract, basically what we're doing is an experienced team from NNSC will work directly with us to support the continued implementation of the group violence intervention, which includes providing strategic advice. You have to slow me down, I tend to get a little fast. All right, strategic advice to help partners shift the way they work together, deliver anti-violence messaging, and execute on enforcement and services promises to reduce violence. The strategy will be structured with the specific intention of developing accountability processes and mechanisms that empower the project manager and other partners to ultimately own fidelity of the implementation. NNSC will continue to train and support the project manager to coordinate implementation of GVI on behalf of the city. NNSC will work with additional project partners committed to the successful implementation of GVI, including providing training. Once the support and outreach coordinators identified, NNSC will provide operational services and training as well to that person. NNSC will conduct dedicated regular virtual sessions with project manager and other key partners to guide the strategy implementation of GVI and plan and support additional investments in a comprehensive strategy to provide expert guidance on any challenges. These sessions will occur every other week for the first year of the agreement and then shift to monthly in the final year of the agreement. NNSC will request quarterly virtual conferences with executive members for the purpose of discussing the progress in implementation, reviewing aforementioned rubric, and building consensus around identified short, medium, and long-term goals. NNSC anticipates facilitating these quarterly discussions at the onset of the contract, but it expects the management of this update and discussion process will shift long-term to the project manager with participation and feedback from NNSC. NNSC will provide one-on-one intensive strategic advising sessions to us in year 1 and 2 of the agreement to assess implementation progress, meet with stakeholders, conduct training. and guide partners to the implementation challenges to the ground. Additional support from NNSC, according to the contract, will be provided in accountability and project management tools. These tools include project management guide and tracking documents specific to planning, call-ins, tracking, messaging, and providing speaker feedback, as well as implementation of the rubric. Access to group violence intervention university training modules. NNSC has developed a suite of group violence intervention university online modules, each of which is designed to cover specific theoretical and operational topics key to the implementation of the GVI. Topics range from nature of street gangs, to strategic law enforcement, to planning, call-in, and are meant to equip the local trainers with both the guidance and the content necessary to deliver their own message. NNSC will make these modules available to us, and will work to adapt them where necessary to specific conditions here in Harrisburg. And as far as the fee schedule on this, how it's broken down, on the last page of the contract, it gives you the fee schedule. The first one's listed there is $50,000, I guess, to get us started. And then in January 1 of 2025 is $23,000. June 1st of 2025 is another $23,000. 2026 follows the same schedule, and then January 1st of 2027, which is the final invoice of $23,000.
Okay. So basically, this is just a grant that's going to provide continued consulting through John Jay and, the NNSC and training.
Correct.
Now, I can turn to Mr. Craig. You go ahead and introduce yourself, sir, please, for the record.
Great evening. I'm Angelo Craig, project manager for the GVI. I don't know if this thing is on.
Yeah, it's on. So can you explain how these funds are going to be used for the training and what that looks like, and just give us a brief overview of some of the things, because I know you guys have already been actively busy with GVI. This is a great opportunity for us to share with the community and some of the steps that have been taken thus far. I know a lot of people feel that this is behind, but I know you guys are continuing to work towards finding a resolution for some of the things that are happening in the city of Harrisburg. So can you explain, I heard Deputy Chief Young talk about the call-in and also custom notification. So just give a brief overview of where we are and how these funds will be used for your training purposes and consulting.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. So to first answer some of your question, which is the trainings will help for, I don't think a lot of people realize that right now it's just me by myself. And there's another component to this, which is you heard Deputy Chief Young say to support an outreach coordinator, which will kind of be my other hand, so to speak. So they will do a lot of the paperwork, a lot of the relationship building, while I'm out there doing a lot of the, for lack of a better term, a lot of on the boots training and networking with the community in terms of reducing the gun violence. So the NNSC provides a structure that from day one helps answer and maintain questions, processes, and the initiative of the GVI strategy to make sure we're going about it in a very strategic way to help reduce, the gun violence issue. As most of you know, for those who don't, it's a nationwide epidemic, so therefore it's a nationwide grant. As we all know, we've all been compared to York. So even with York being 8 years in, they still have a skeleton model that they still contract with NNSC. So even as much as they've grown, they still use them for support services as well. So in this case, with myself being less than a year in, and we still haven't hired a support and outreach coordinator, the trainings and development would continue to further develop and implement us so we can continue to grow and attack this nationwide epidemic. As far as, again, some of the terminology, I'll refresh you. The Custom notifications are where we have started. I believe our first step out date was August 29th. The custom notifications are, again, individuals that have been identified via through gang task force or with our incident reviews. We go out and knock on those individuals' homes, and they can be, yes, adult and juveniles. And these are the ones who've been identified as, again, a GMI, which is a group member involved. They may be involved in a group, and they may be involved in a gang, or both. But again, the strategy states that not all gangs are groups, but not all groups are gangs, but all gangs are groups. So that's why they call it group violence, not gang violence, for that particular reason. Again, with that being said, the custom notifications we have started, I believe, considering myself, Sergeant Chapman, Officer Velez, and Captain Winder, we're going out once a week on Thursdays. We're trying to find a niche time. We've been going out between 12:30 and 1, returning back to, station between 4 and 5, depending on how successful in terms of people being accessible, being home. I did have my own figures here where we've made 50 contacts. We've attempted to go out to 50 homes, and out of those 50, we've made 11 contacts in terms of getting people, talking to them, and helping them start to make some pivoting and life choices with our provider sheet that I do hand out once we enter to the home. The good news is that's 22%. The better news is, because you thought I was gonna say bad news, the better news is that number would be higher, but we've come into a obstacle where a lot of those addresses are no longer valid. Not due to anyone's fault, but because of the transit in society and population that we're dealing with, they're moving at a higher alarming rate than people would like to believe. So imagine if we could really get to people whose addresses are a little bit more stable, that number will be a lot higher. So considering we started in August and it's the middle of October and we've made contacts, I'm following up with people weekly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. So again, just in that small time to have this 22%, and again, the only reason the number's not higher is because, again, sometimes it's trying to get to people, have access to them because of their addresses are not valid. There was one occasion where we had 3 or 4 addresses for one individual, and we hit all 3 addresses that day, and they were gone from all 3 of those addresses. So again, going back to NNSC, we can then use them as a blueprint to when we run across obstacles like this, how they would help us navigate through some of these waters. Again, we are going to have our first call-in December. I believe the date is December 11th. Don't quote me, but I'm confident in that date. And again, the call-in is the structure, again, that the NSC has provided where we identify individuals that we will bring in as a structured format that everyone has, credible messengers and voices of reason and different types of voices, and people get to speak to these individuals. It's usually, they call it a one-sided conversation. I know Councilman Jones, as well as DC and myself, we've been down New York, and I've seen, 2 of those. And again, it's a very powerful and engaging opportunity to help get these young men and women, to, make better life choices. So I know I've said a lot. We've also been in the schools. I know you're doing something parallel with the gun violence. So we're in the schools talking about the GVI. We've done assemblies. We've hit 9 of the, I believe, 12 schools so far. The first week of school, just letting myself be known, letting GVI be known, introducing the CSAs, which are the community service aides. And again, just trying to make an impact as much as I can, again, considering, I'm by myself for the most part. And just having the support of the Commissioner, DC, Councilman Jones. And I think in that short period of time, I want people to really understand the impact that we have done, just, again, with the shorthanded staff that we're working with. And that's why we need this grant to continue to have that support and outreach. Again, pun intended, when we get the support and outreach coordinator, that person, so I don't have to take time to go try to train them by myself. They can get it from the NNSC, and they can answer all of their questions and allow me to continue to keep moving forward and moving this GVI into the space that, we're already starting to make a positive dent in.
Okay, thank you for that. And so my colleagues are aware, as Mr. Craig had, briefly mentioned, I believe it's November 1st, we're going to be going into all of the schools, to especially if we're starting out in the Harrisburg School District, but we're going to be going in all of the schools and addressing our youth and having them speak to us to let us know what we can do to help them and, to help end some of this violence and some of the resources that they may need. Other than that, for far as this grant money, is some of these money is going to be used to train some of the credible messengers and the CSAs, if I'm correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, all right. So the term credible messenger does not have one definition. So there are different levels, as we like to say, there's different layers of credible messengers. But the credible messengers that we're looking to train for are those individuals that have used to be in a life of crime, but have turned their life around and want to now engage in helping the youth and turn their life around. Now, again, they will have to be vetted through the police department. So we are training. We contracted with a gentleman out of Chicago. Chicago and LA are the two founding cities that have started credible messenger training because of the big gang violence, obviously, in California and Chicago. So the gentleman's name is, I believe, T.O. Hardiman. He's what they would call one of the OGs of credible messenger training. He's trained a lot of the ones underneath him. So he's looking to come here, and we have the ability to train up to 20 individuals. So of those 20, we're going to use our 6 CSAs. He will then train them for 2 full days between 8 and 10-hour sessions. There will be a follow-up once he leaves. I think we have 3 to 4 follow-up training sessions available once he leaves, and then they will get a certified credible messenger training, which would, again, work on skills and abilities, and again, to help to engage when we go out to these individuals' homes. So again, I'm very confident in my abilities in this position and why I took it, but one thing I cannot say when we go out to these homes, one thing I know that my limitation is I've never been arrested. Captain Winder's never been arrested. Sergeant Chapman's never been arrested.
Okay, we get that. Me neither. But
Right.
No.
So the credible messenger is an important piece because it's something that I like to say when we give them the cake, that credible messenger can be the icing on the cake. Because again, a lot of these people, they're looking at us when we come in there because they're used to seeing either police officers or probation officers. So when I come in and I say, hey, my name is Angelo, I'm GVI, I'm here to help you, they're looking at me like, all right, yeah, whatever. Because it's new. So they don't trust me to a degree. And I always say to them, I say, I know you're probably waiting to say, hey, where was I at last week at 4 o'clock? Because that's normally the questions they get. But when I don't ask them that and I share with them the services, even on the way out the door, they're still kind of looking like, all right, he's still going to ask me, where was I at? So my point is, even though we get, if I had to use a number, maybe a 60 to 70% buy-in when we're there, that credible messenger can, like I said, add that icing to the cake and say, hey, this is real. I used to be in the life. So it just adds a little bit of authenticity and genuineness, because again, until the word gets out and we've established our own reputation with GVI is, they're not familiar with it. They still think we're coming to arrest them, even though we tell them we're not. Even though the police officers show up in plain clothing, even though they still have their badges and their guns, this is still foreign to them. So they don't trust it yet. So we have to earn that respect, and that credible messenger training piece is going to be very, very valuable to us once we enter in these homes, again, to make that hard pivot for these people to understand that this is real.
All right, thank you. And last question, I promise, from me. How is it going with the credible messengers? How is your search going?
I know you've helpful, in providing some names between, we've had a list that was generated before I got here, provided to me from Adrian. I know you've been a useful tool, and myself, again, Sergeant Chapman. So I think at this point, we should be able to hit that 20-person mark when the trainer does officially sign on, that we will have our own set of credible messengers. And that's important because we were looking at another agency, and their credible messengers, at one point they had 6, and they had 2, and they had 1. So we decided that we were more comfortable having our own pool to choose from than to rely on someone else's uncertainty pool, depending on their access and job status.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Young, you have anything to add? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right, so I'll open the floor up to my colleagues. I'll start to my immediate right, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Jones. Thank you, DC Young, for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here as always. When Councilman Jones had asked you how we were doing with the credible messengers, you had said pretty much when the trainer signs on, we'll kind of dig deeper into that. So as of right now, there are none?
Correct, there are none.
Okay, awesome. And
So,
then,
and let me add to that, yeah, so we have a pool of people that we need to start vetting to get to that point. So, I mean, that process, they have 20 names of people that they're looking at to bring them on. So
Okay.
that process has started. Are they out on the street yet? No. I mean, that seems to be the biggest challenge at this point. I think if you talk to him or Captain Winder, Sport and Outreach Coordinator right now is listed in our budget as a part-time position. What we're doing, what we got.
it's actually budgeted.
It's actually budgeted for a part-time position, and it's incredibly hard to find somebody to do that on a part-time basis. So what we did for next year, what we're proposing to do for next year, since we got the funding for that, it would be covered through the grant, is make that a full-time position. And then that way we can move forward with that to get him the help he needs and then the resources in play. That way this thing will start moving a little faster. It flutters, so it moved and then it sort of kind of slowed a little bit. It's starting to get traction again. I mean, when they're out in the community, they're out there. When York was here, or it was Pine Bluff came in from Arkansas. So they were out, they were moving around, and that sort of kind of, I mean, it started getting some traction again.
The hope would be by making it a full-time position with all the bells and whistles, it'll entice.
Correct. It gets the resources to it that is what it really
What it
needs in order to
deserves.
take off.
Absolutely. You had mentioned the CSAs briefly, as far as introducing them. What role do they play in the GVI grant?
Right now, that's a good question. Right now, they're a minimal role. Right now, I'm using them just in the aspect of when we go to school assemblies. Talking to the principals, we've got positive feedback from all principals that their presence in the schools, they've gotten pretty much carte blanche from every school that we've attended, that the principals would like their presence in the school. Because again, it presents them another enforcement and authority agent in the schools. So I'm using them just as an extension of GVI because I like to present us as a team when I go out there in the school capacity.
Now, that was never in their initial agreement as far as contractual. Is that something we would have to go back to the unions and renegotiate, or is that pretty much they're good to go into the schools and work with the schools?
I don't know.
Yeah, so if I may, Councilman Rodriguez, yeah, so you're talking about the CSAs, and there's nothing that needs to be renegotiated as far as them being in the union, or, I mean, this is a part of the scope that they're under, even with the GVI. They're included in this GVI.
Right. Initially, though, that wasn't in their scope of work, and then they changed the scope of work. So I just want to make sure we're all in compliance and
We'll make
clear
su-
on their
we can
duties.
double check with ASME before we, and that's
Absolutely.
typically what we do is we'll go to ASME if you want to call it a change of work condition.
Yes.
In which I'm not certain that.
Because I know
would
there was
apply.
even mix-up if they could ticket, if they can't ticket, if there was a lot going on at one point.
Correct. So, I mean, we'll double check and make sure that's within the abilities, what the CSAs do and good with the ASME union.
Okay.
We can certainly
And
do that.
you had alluded kind of to Director Houston, she's no longer involved or no longer with the department?
I didn't mention.
Yeah,
Okay,
she's
okay.
no
You had said, Chardin, something about, Alicia had left?
I don't recall.
He was talking about the list of
Well, the question
potential
is, Director
credible
Houston
messengers.
still with us?
No.
Okay. Is this for ARPA compliance that we need to get the contract with the college because they are in compliance with the GVI grant? Or this is just to supplement to make it a bit broader?
So I think in everything that I see here within the contract, they're the people that actually do it.
Yes,
So
yes,
they're the
yes.
ones at York and I think York's about 6 years ahead of us, so we're still trying to play catch up to that.
I'm sorry, my question was, are we looking forward to contract with them to be in compliance with the ARPA grant that we initially put in?
No.
No,
I don't
okay,
believe so.
okay. Is this a matching grant by chance? Do we match
So
funds with PCCD?
They reimburse the full.
Oh, it's a reimbursed fund,
Right,
okay,
so
okay.
this is, it's all fully reimbursed through PCCD.
Through PCCD, awesome.
Right, doesn't cost, it doesn't cost the city, the funds are coming through the PCCD.
You had mentioned 22% of the 50 people, which was about 11 individuals you guys made contact with. What are some of the services, because you said you had made contact to try to get them back on the right track. What were some of those services that you utilized or contacted to help them move forward in a brighter light?
As the old saying goes, I can show you better than I can.
Well, I guess just for the resident standpoint, because they can't see what you handed me, it would be great just to kind of articulate it. Thank you.
I know you want one. It's called my provider list. The provider list has right now, and
Yes, into the mic, thank you.
It's called my provider list, and right now it has 6 different types of providers that have agreed to work with the GVI. Right now is the drug and alcohol. The second one would be Tri-County OIC. The third one would be SCPA Works, South Central Pennsylvania Works. The next one would be Justice for Hopes. Then we have AmeriChoice Credit Union, and then a Miracle for Sure. Each one has broken down with the definition of what they do, contact person, and the services that they provide. All these providers are for free. So when we walk into a home, there is no expectation except for compliance. There is no financial obligation to any of these individuals.
Yes, sir. What was the luck you've had with any of these providers actually assisting those 11 individuals?
I don't understand the question.
You've made contact with 11 individuals
right,
and offered services. Was there any turnaround or any success with those services?
Well, success is a process. So again, we just started this at the end of August, so we're trying to get young men out of a life of crime.
There's men, more than men commit crimes.
Excuse me?
There's other genders than men that commit
Right,
crimes.
but right now, we've touched 11 men. So in this case, that's why the follow-up is consistent with me. Because again, they get hot for a couple days and they go cold. Then they get hot, then they get cold. So again, just following up with them, making sure that they honor their commitment. I had a young man who, he said he didn't have a license. So I offered to go take him down to PennDOT to get his license. Then he got his license. I had another young man who just this week, I have a contact down at on Front Street. The Office of Services on 100 Front Street. What's it called?
It's, I forget, the 1100 right by.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So there's a contact down there. So again, just following up with him, playing phone tag.
The building 1100 on
Right.
front.
I'm just trying to think of the,
You know, Dauphin County Drug and Alcohol relocated.
I'm not talking about drug and alcohol.
Okay.
It escapes me right now.
There's still units, yeah, CMU's still there.
But this one has to do with jobs.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about CEO?
Career links.
Oh, career,
Link.
okay.
So there's.
Got you.
Yeah, there's a young man, so again.
Down by the Appalachian Brewery?
Yep.
Yes.
So again, just following up with him, trying to make sure he sets up his meeting time. I had another young man, again, I spoke to him today. He was going to go to Tri-County OIC because he wants to enter into a program to get his GED. So again, it's a lot of follow-up. So again, people don't understand how this GVI thing is a process. So, you just don't knock on people's doors and say, hey, I know you've been committing, crimes, you've been doing this, so I'm gonna give you this, and I never follow up, and we know you're gonna do it on your own.
No, I completely understand. I actually had the committee when we first spoke about it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I'm speaking.
No, not just you, I'm just
Yeah.
saying overall, but sometimes people in the community
To the
think,
common resident, they don't have an idea, it's just
exactly.
jargon to them.
Yeah,
So try to break it down as simple as we can and granulate it, but I do appreciate your answers. DC, thank you for joining us. No further questions, Chair Jones, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Just a comment off of what the dialogue you and Mr. Rodriguez were having. Thank you for being here both tonight. I think, too, the reason why people aren't, I know my cup, that big stand. Sometimes, because I'm one of them, not knowing exactly what's happening, is maybe we need to communicate more with press conferences or just connecting the community more with what's happening and the steps being taken. Because I do think we're doing things. I think objectives are being met. I just think nobody knows that they are, right? So you don't know what you don't know. So I don't know if John Jay puts in a piece of that of how you contact the community to reach out to them and let them know what's happening, or how you update them, maybe a newsletter, I don't know. But something that allows them to know, hey, we are working. I know you all see York all the time on TV and everybody wants us to do what they do, but I do understand we have to do what's best for us and create our own blueprint. But then if maybe we can put a piece in there that says this is how we reach out to the community, I do think it would be really helpful. So
That's support, and that's a great point, Councilman. Rawls is the support and outreach coordinator, that would fall under a little bit of their job description.
Okay.
To help with it. So again, I'm trying to balance
it's
all
all
this.
these pieces.
Yeah, by myself, right, exactly. But you're exactly right. That's why it's so critical that we get that support and outreach coordinator position.
Yeah. Oh,
Great
Good.
question.
thank you. And I just, one more thing, I was wondering, because we were speaking about like the credible messenger and the training, the support outreach coordinator. What about the officer? I know that's a piece in it, I believe, that I think there's an officer assigned to that point that they go in with you. I don't know everything they do, but
Right.
are you still vetting officers for that? Is that part of what John Jay would do? Like, where are you at in the status of locating
We
an
have
officer?
what we call our GVI team, and like just the names I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Sergeant Chapman.
Okay.
And Officer Velez and/or Captain Winder, depending on his availability and how much work DC's giving him to do at that particular. So he doesn't always get to come out, so he likes to blame DC, because he does a lot of work. But,
Okay, so he would
but
be,
we have
go
the
out,
same
okay.
core unit, and again, Councilman Rodriguez, not offended to you, great questions, but what they do, they go in and ensure the safety.
Okay,
You guys are asking all the right questions, so my response is sometimes sensitive because I hear it, and I'm like, you people, something, when I say people, community, sometimes
clarify
personally.
that.
Yeah, right,
I'm
right,
just
don't
like,
say you people.
I really can't think I'm gonna do all this by myself, right? You know, because it's like sometimes when I hear there's a shooting, they go, where's the GVI guy? I'm like, wow, that's your first thought when there's a shooting? Where was I at? But again, that tells you the work we have to do. And I'm not mad because I know they want change. So it's coming from a good place. But to answer your question, what we call it a soft handoff. So they go in there, because again, I don't carry a weapon. And that's part of the great thing about it. So when I do go in there and say, hey, I'm not a police officer. So again, trying to diffuse them to make them more comfortable.
Okay.
But again, we call it a soft handoff. They knock on the door, they introduce, then they give me the soft handoff. Then at that point, we engage, we go into the home, kind of sit down, they kind of keep an eye on the surroundings, they ask who's in the house, and again, just to provide everyone's safety. But the point is, it's the same people all the time. So it's either myself, Sergeant Chapman, Officer Velez, or Captain Winder. And when, like Councilman Rodriguez said, once we get that credible messenger, then they will be on the team.
Okay.
Yeah, it falls within the Community Services Division, and that's where all the officers are assigned.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you. That was it for me. Appreciate it.
Great question.
Thank you.
Okay, and one thing to add to that too, as far as visibility for Mr. Craig, one of the things that they are doing is, I hate to use the word, but I think it's kind of true, as marketing him, to put him in a space, kind of how we met with Tiff Lowe in York. They gave her own space. I mean, of course, she has a little further reach at the moment. However, I think it is important, so that's why I'm including him in some of the things that I'm doing in the community to also give him more accessibility and visibility. All right, President Bowers.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Green.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here tonight. I'm glad to hear about some of the information about what is going on with the GVI program, because we don't get a lot of information. I know I reached out a couple of times, not to you, but to the commissioner, and I didn't really get a reply back as to what was going on with the program. I understand it's been a busy time and a lot of things going on, so I appreciate you being here tonight. You're always welcome to come down and just give us an update, shoot us an email, anything, and I guess we can do the same, vice versa, because you do have a lot on your plate. So thank you for being here. As far as questions, I feel like that end kind of asked a lot of them, so I don't have any questions for you, but I do appreciate your work.
Thank you. I appreciate you appreciating me.
Vice President Green. Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. My sentiments are the same as Vice President Green's. Thank you for the
Excellent deposition
dialogue,
technique.
because I have been able to kind of connect the dots and get a better vision of what is actually going on. So I don't have any questions at all. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Daniels.
Yeah, this is just to refresh my memory on the relationship. Like, there was a reason why John Jay uses Cooney in particular. Does anyone remember why?
They were the ones to actually create the program with
okay.
GVI.
Okay. And then what's the contractual relationship between John Jay and Cooney and us? Because we're entering the contract, but Cooney is the subgrantee of John Jay?
I don't know the answer to that without going back and reading it, so I didn't prepare the contract, so I can get you that answer before your next meeting.
Yeah, like just the
Yep.
sense of what the structure is. And
Yeah,
that's it for me.
I'll lay it out for you, yep.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions or concerns right here? All right, thank you, gentlemen. I would ask that resolutions that ends the work of public safety, and I would ask that Resolution 63 of 2024 be moved to our next legislative session, and I hope that my colleagues support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're free. You keep those. No, seriously, keep those. Keep those.
Okay.
I got plenty. I got plenty. What's that? What did you say?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, before I leave, so again, you can have that. That's why I wanted to give you one. So again, when people do start to ask what it is, so you have a little visual presentation, you can explain to them what we're doing when we're going out to these homes. So that would kind of maybe answer some of the questions that most of us are getting. You're welcome.
Thank you. We will now move forward with our meeting agenda. We will open the floor for public comment. Not sure if there will be any participants, but we'll still move forward. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live within the city. You'll have 4 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone in the middle section? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone to my left? Seeing and hearing no one, the time is 6:39 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned. Council members, please remember we have an executive session immediately following. Thank you.